it's Jack from Cultaholic.com. Once again, forgive me if I sneeze in the middle of this or if my eyes look a bit red. Once again, hay fever continues to kick my ass. We have some news stories to talk about in the world of wrestling, but obviously at the same time, there are very serious stories going around under the hashtag speaking out movement. To get an update on all the goings on in that sort of sphere, then do check out Tom's news video also on this channel. We thought it'd be best to group them together and the non-speaking out news stories in a separate video, this one, and Tom's just better at the serious stuff really. So do check that out, and thanks to Tom for covering the heavy stuff because it's not something that I'd really want to do. But yes, we do have some regular wrestling news to talk about. So without any further ado, let's take a look at those headlines. First of all, a top Raw superstar is having surgery. Next up, a recently released WWE superstar has stepped away from professional wrestling. And finally, another recently released WWE star is challenging for an Impact Wrestling title. So yes, a top Raw superstar is set to miss some time due to surgery, and it's none other than Charlotte Flair. Now, you may have noticed that the booking of Charlotte has been quite weird recently, a little bit inconsistent, a little bit up and down, where we all know that she beat Rhea Ripley for the NXT Women's Championship at WrestleMania, and then beat everyone in NXT, and then lost that title in that triple threat match at TakeOver to Io Shirai, and then the next week on Raw just beat everyone. She beat Asuka, she beat Bayley and Sasha in a tag match. WWE were really annoyed at having to take that women's title off her, and I think put her over everyone else as a result. I don't know, that's just speculation. And since then, Charlotte's been mixing it up with various different members of the Raw Women's division. She beat Asuka at one point due to interference by Nia Jax, but also she lost to Asuka this week. So there's not a lot of consistency there at all. Why is that? Well, it seems like at some point WWE may have found out that she was about to undergo surgery, or that she should undergo surgery, I should say. Now, on Wrestling Observer Live yesterday, Dave Meltzer confirmed that Charlotte was set to have surgery and would miss time as a result of this. He also said that it's not a shoulder injury, which seems like a bizarre thing to specify, but that may have something to do with the fact that WWE released news of a kayfabe injury suffered by Charlotte at the hands of Nia Jax, a collarbone injury, which, collarbone, shoulder, maybe that's the reason for that, I'm not quite certain. Meltzer also said there is hope that Charlotte will be ready for a return around SummerSlam in August, but that is not 100%. It's a strange one. Obviously, we wish Charlotte a very speedy recovery, but at the same time, it's going to be weird, isn't it, not seeing her on TV, because not long ago, she was a regular on all three brands, on Raw, SmackDown, and even NXT as well. So it's going to be strange seeing her everywhere all the time and suddenly on none of the shows for a little bit. Next up, a recently released WWE Superstar has stepped away entirely from professional wrestling, and it's Sarah Logan. Logan put a statement out on her Instagram saying, "A lot has changed in my life recently, and I've stepped away from wrestling for the foreseeable future. Wrestling is all I've known since I was 17, so it's time I let myself focus on other things and explored other parts of myself." She continued with a message to her fans saying, "My Instagram is going to be different, but I promise it will always reflect me. So if you want to take this crazy ride, then buckle up because things have been moving faster than I can keep up. My efforts have been on @TheWildandFree TV, check it out, and that's the best way to keep up. We're releasing some awesome content. I don't say this enough, but I appreciate you guys, and I hope to see you down the line." So it sounds like, fair enough, since being released from WWE, Sarah Logan has decided to step away from wrestling. You can't argue with someone's desire to do that. It's their choice, and oftentimes, a lot of wrestlers seem to just kind of find themselves more, don't they, when they take some time away from the squared circle. But of course, Logan hasn't lost all ties to pro wrestling because, of course, her husband is current Viking Raider and WWE superstar Eric, formerly known, of course, as Raymond Rowe. So we wish Sarah Logan all the best in whatever she decides to do next. Hopefully it's something that is creatively fulfilling for her, and yeah, check out that Instagram that I mentioned if you want to follow her journey. Next up, Pete Dunne has revealed in an interview with TalkSport who he'd like to face in NXT, not NXT UK, the American NXT, and it's not the first name you might think of when you think of the really work rate heavy roster of NXT. Dunne has, of course, already had some excellent matches in WWE, especially the one against fellow Brit Tyler Bate. There was the one on NXT UK when he finally lost that title against Volta. But yeah, there's a slightly surprising opponent that he wants to match up with in future. Dunne said this, "Honestly, someone that I would like to work with would be Drake Maverick. We never really got to work with each other. We're both from Birmingham. The chances of all these lads from the West Midlands being able to make names for themselves in the WWE, I never would have predicted that years ago. So I'd love love to get in there with someone like him, and I feel like it will be an interesting dynamic. The way he is and the way I am will be something people probably wouldn't expect. That will be really interesting. That is really interesting because it's something I've never really thought of before. Yeah, Pete Dunne has never, as far as I know, mixed it up too much with Drake Maverick, certainly on the UK independent scene, and I can't quite work out why that is. I guess their peaks must have just missed each other. Like, by the time Pete Dunne was making a name for himself in Britain, Drake Maverick would already have been over in Impact, I guess, and then WWE, and then I guess when Pete Dunne was on the way up, then Drake Maverick was lower down on the card. It's just one of those things, I think, where they've just kind of missed each other, like ships in the night. But I do agree, I do think it would be an interesting dynamic, because obviously Drake Maverick can do comedy, can do funny stuff, but also has this very serious side, as we've seen recently in this whole release storyline in NXT. Likewise, Pete Dunne is known for his serious side, but can do comedy stuff as well. If you've seen him in UK promotions like Attack, for example, he often plays like the straight man when everything else around him is kind of becoming wacky and silly, and it plays off really well. So I do think it will be an interesting dynamic, and I also think it will be an absolute banger of a match, because even though he's quite a bit older than Pete Dunne, he's not loads older, you know, he's not like 20, 30 years older than Pete Dunne, and I think that Maverick could have a really good match against the Bruiserweight. Next up, let's head over to New Japan Pro Wrestling for an update on the ongoing New Japan Cup. We've seen some excellent matches so far in the tournament. A lot of people like Minoru Suzuki versus Yuji Nagata, just two old dads battering each other with forearm after forearm, slap after slap. But I think the best match so far, and I think many people agree, has been Sho versus Shingo Takagi, a rematch of their excellent Best of the Super Juniors match last year, but maybe even better. Watch it for yourself and decide. But I'm going to run through the lineup for the second round of tournament action. So half the bracket is actually taking place now, today. It may have already been done by the time this video goes out, I'm not sure, but it is available on demand at New Japan World. So the matches for today's show are/were Kazuchika Okada versus Yuji Nagata, Togi Makabe versus Tomohiro Ishii, Toru Yano versus Hiromu Takahashi in what could be a wacky comedy match, Taiji Ishimori versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Those are the four matches today. I mean, looking at that, this half of the bracket seems to have two clear favourites and one potential dark horse. Okada and Ishii, you've got to say, have a good chance of winning this half of the bracket overall. But Hiromu Takahashi, despite being a junior heavyweight, he's got a vested interest in this. He's been talking a lot about how he wants to challenge his stable leader Naito for that heavyweight championship, and to secure a shot, he just needs to win this tournament against, you know, much bigger lads, but he's crazy enough to do it, possibly. On the other hand, I'm going to pick Ishii to win the bracket. I think he's going to beat Okada later on. I don't know, that could be absolutely crazy. He might have already been eliminated. By the time this video goes out, who knows? He won't have been, he'll be fine. Moving on to the right-hand side of the bracket now. Those four matches take place on July 1st, bit of a break in the middle, and they are Kota Ibushi versus Taichi, who of course recently beat Hiroshi Tanahashi, which was a shocking result. So Ibushi versus Taichi, Sho versus Sanada, Hiroki Goto versus Evil, and Yoshihashi versus Bushi. Lots of LIJ members involved there, Sanada, Evil, and Bushi all still in the tournament and could meet each other in later rounds. However, with Sho having beaten Shingo Takagi, I could see him going quite a lot further should he be able to get past Sanada. Kota Ibushi, I think, has to be the favourite in this half of the bracket, though. He is the biggest star in there currently and did recently beat his eternal foe, Zack Sabre Jr. in the first round. Another really good match. So, very interesting stuff, but the exciting thing maybe isn't so much these second round matches, but the matches we could get a little bit later on, because it's stacking up to be pretty exciting. And finally, we've talked about one recently released WWE Superstar, and when I say recently, I mean a few months ago during that big cutback that was very dramatic and very, very sad really. But we've talked about one, Sarah Logan, who is of course stepping away from wrestling. But in kind of opposite news, another recently released WWE Superstar now has a title shot in a different promotion entirely, in Impact Wrestling. And that wrestler is Deonna Purrazzo, who didn't really get a chance, I don't think, to show what she can really do in WWE as part of the NXT brand. She never really got utilized to, well, anywhere near her level of potential. Because those familiar with Purrazzo prior to her WWE stint on the independent scene will know that she is just an incredibly accomplished technical wrestler, very interesting indeed, and I'm excited to see what happens from here on out. And it was confirmed on last night's episode of Impact that Purrazzo will be getting a shot at the Impact Knockouts title, that's their women's title, against current champion Jordynne Grace. And not only that, but it's going to take place at Slammiversary. Now, this has been built off the back of a little feud since Purrazzo has first appeared in Impact, where she's been attacking Jordynne Grace over the past couple of weeks. They've not been vicious beatdowns, they've been more proving that she's technically superior, I guess, to Jordynne Grace. So for example, when Purrazzo made her debut, it wasn't quite clear at first whether she was a babyface or a heel. She squared off against Jordynne Grace, then took her down and put her in the Fujiwara armbar, and it was clear that she was a heel. And then recently, a couple of episodes ago, maybe 2 weeks ago I think, she put her in the armbar again. So this week, it was time for the tables to turn. This week, Purrazzo made her in-ring debut against Alicia Edwards and submitted her with the Fujiwara armbar, but then Jordynne Grace ran out and looked to put a beating on her challenger, but instead, Purrazzo bailed and ran away from the ring. Boo! I hope Jordynne Grace gets you, but seriously, we could be looking at a title change in a few weeks' time at Slammiversary, just because, you know, Deonna Purrazzo is the hot new star from WWE, and if we look at Impact's booking history, they've never really been shy about putting the belt on an ex-WWE person. Then again, it's a bit of a different situation, isn't it? Because you don't really look at Purrazzo as a WWE star, just because, as I mentioned earlier, she was never really given the chance to shine there. So very interesting stuff that has been added to the Slammiversary card, which we will be keeping you updated with as more matches are announced. The only other match announced for the card is a 5-way intergender match for the Impact World Championship, with the champion Tessa Blanchard defending against Ace Austin, who was recently interviewed by Tom. Do check that out. Eddie Edwards, Trey Miguel, or just Trey as he is now known, I believe, and Michael Elgin, who I think has been suspended actually, so we'll have to see if anything develops from that, if he's replaced by anybody in the title match. But even though there are only 2 matches announced, there is still a few weeks until the show itself, which takes place on July 18th, 2020. Of course it's 2020, what am I talking about? Cheers. So that's it for this video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. My match recommendation for today, I don't know. Charlotte versus Asuka, WrestleMania 34, wrong decision, great match, possibly the best match on the card if you ignore John Cena stealing their thunder and running to the back to get ready for his match with Taker. Ignore that, watch the match, ignore the bad result, and you should probably enjoy it. And with that, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.